Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare.
Marilyn Monroe was not murdered by the US government. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. What conspiracy theory do you believe to be true? What evidence led you to this conclusion?
Number 1.
Commenter. When Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was at Harvard, he participated in a brutal psychological experiment led by Professor Henry Murray. The experiment lasted for 3 years, and by many accounts they seemed to have an extreme impact on Kaczynski's psyche. I think this experiment was part of the CIA's MK-Ultra project and destabilized Kaczynski enough to where he eventually went on his reign of terror of sending bomb packages around the country. During the MK-Ultra project, the CIA collaborated with university professors on these mind control experiments, but a lot of the documentation was destroyed when people started to look into it. The Unabomber participated in an experiment that was a part of the MK-Ultra project that eventually led to him becoming a mass murderer. Person B. I think this one's proven, isn't it? Didn't someone FOIA documents a few years back that explicitly stated that Kaczynski was an MK-Ultra test subject? Not that the CIA set out to create a terrorist, but that he was accidentally set on that path by them. Person C. My understanding is that the professor was involved in MK-Ultra in some capacity, but that particular experiment was not related.
Number 2.
Commenter. I feel drugs like cocaine being cut with fentanyl. No dealer who wants to keep making money is going to cut their blow with fent. It seems like drugs are being intercepted, cut with dangerous shit, and then sent back out. Evidence, they already did the same thing during alcohol prohibition. The people doing it are convinced they are doing society a favor. Person B. This has always been something in the back of mind. You're the first person I've heard say something like this though. I used to sell weed when I was younger, but I fraternized with people that sold much harder shit, heroin, coke and meth. In a competitive drug market, you get customers by being known as the guy that doesn't cut your shit. Now I've never done fentanyl, but I've done a lot of coke and opiates. Coke gets you up and opiates put you down, so why the F would any dealer trying to sell blow cut their shit with an opiate? It doesn't make any sense to me. I guess you could argue that the more down you get, the more you want to get up, so you buy more coke. But drugs don't always work like that, because there's usually a compounding effect that gets you more F up in a different way than either drug could F you up on its own. The whole thing just sounds fishy to me, like someone's either getting their facts wrong or there's some kind of conspiracy afoot.
Number 3.
Commenter. I don't necessarily believe this, but I've always speculated that a lot of priceless artwork and historical documents are actually replicas or copies. Obviously, a painting by a world-famous artist using a very specific technique would be very hard to fake, and I don't think that every art scholar in the world is paid off in some grand conspiracy. Rather, I just think that either the national treasures never left their vaults, or that some national treasures actually were lost to history but they were copied. Person B. If the copy is good enough, old enough, and all we've ever known, does it become a treasure in its own right? Person C. I mean, you can think of the United States Declaration of Independence and Constitution, or the comparable documents of many other nations, I presume. There was definitely an original, but then several copies were made. The copies are considered nearly as valuable as the original. Slightly different, but related take on the matter.
Number 4.
Commenter. I have a theory that Tinder gives fake "you got a new match" notifications, so people get excited and opens Tinder, which leads them to swipe more. Person B. Absolutely the case with Plenty of Fish. UK dating app, not sure if it's worldwide like Tinder. Quite easy to see the patterns, etc., and the repeated timings are almost down to within the minute. Also does get loads of matches within the first few days of starting an account, and then again after a few weeks to try and get you interested again.
Number 5.
Commenter. Disney made Zootopia partly to replace the Song of the South characters from Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain is really the only thing that still exists in the public eye from Song of the South, along with the song Zippity Doo-Dah, since Disney wants to pretend that movie doesn't exist. So they created a movie featuring Fox and Rabbit characters that could replace Brer Fox and Brer Rabbit, and rethemed the entire ride to be Zootopia themed. While leaving some things, like the name and the songs featured in the ride from Song in the South. There's also that Disney loves re-theming things to their IP now, getting rid of Maelstrom and bringing in a Frozen-themed ride. So, it would make more sense for them to retheme a ride to a successful recent movie than keep a ride based on an old, mildly racist movie they're trying to forget. Person B: I could believe this, but Splash Mountain is so ridiculously popular that fans would ride if they tried retheming it. I do like the part about the new fox and bunny though.
Number 6.
Commenter: Area 51 is not a place for secret government or military testing with aliens and stuff. Instead, Area 51 is a scapegoat while shady behind the scenes stuff is going on at another military base that the general public doesn't know about. I mean, if you were really going to do something in secrecy, would you do it in the place where everyone thinks it is? Hell no. I don't have any specific evidence to back this up, but it makes sense, right? Person B: I was stationed at Holloman AFB, which is in Area 52. Miles upon miles of empty land in the desert, work buildings way out in the middle of nowhere. One of the largest airspaces in the continental US, and a monkey farm where they used to test on apes. I wouldn't be surprised if some sketchy shit happens out there.
Number 7.
I used to live outside Alamogordo in the 90s. I was just a few miles from Holloman. I was also a kid that was into amateur radio and checking out aircraft. I didn't have money or nice gear, but I had a telescope and a couple questionably legal unlicensed homebrew radio receivers. Based on what little I saw and heard, I would not be surprised if weird, shady or secret stuff was the order of the day at Holloman AFB. I saw some jet flights that were not on published schedules, so they were probably classified tests. I heard some control tower chatter that was using code words that weren't standard military jargon. Didn't add up to too much, but my whole family is military and they agreed it sounded like testing of stuff that hadn't been declassified yet.
Number 8.
Commenter: This is more of a personal conspiracy. I've been working as an American healthcare consultant for 2 years now, and I genuinely think that insurance companies are purposely denying claims, so that they can leverage capital for their beneficiaries' medical records. For example, one of my clients is a huge and important hospital system, had to deal with hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical claim denials. Humana suddenly decided it didn't believe any of those hospital stays were legitimate. They basically told my client to either fax hundreds of medical records or accept the zero pays. It's really suspicious and unfortunate. But when they have the money, what can you do? Person B: I bill Humana and they do that all the time. They send refund requests based on nothing and then we have to appeal by sending medical records, and even that's a crapshoot. Humana rejections suck. Recently they stated in a denial that plain old physical therapy was considered experimental treatment and they wouldn't pay for it.
Number 9.
Commenter: That the USA deliberately gets into an armed conflict every decade or so for the purpose of ensuring that at any given time, they always have a critical mass of soldiers with actual combat experience. They get in a lot of conflicts, and it seems highly probable that the leadership of a country that spends so much on national defense would highly value the institutional knowledge that comes from that kind of continuity of practical experience, even if it comes at a high human cost. Person B: Say what you like about American interventionism, but I think the world is safer now than it would be if the dominant power was China or Russia. As a descendant of, and just like the British Empire, the American Empire is overall a force of good in the world. Sure, they do some messed up things, but in the overarching story, the world owes a great debt to Britain, America, and to a lesser extent Germany and France. I'm sure the world would be a much worse place if China dominated world affairs. That's why I'm somewhat worried about the rising power of BRIC nations.
Number 10.
Commenter: iHeartRadio coordinates commercial breaks to all take place simultaneously, so you're forced to listen to ads even if you change the station. They're practically a monopoly in my area and I notice it happens to me all the time. Person B: Radio stations, even competitors, do this on purpose. No hidden conspiracy needed. If your main competitor airs spots like commercials, at 15, 30 and 45, it's in your interest to do the same. That way your listeners can't switch to music on another station during your spot break and potentially stay there. It's not like radio is secret. You can and should monitor competition and plan accordingly. To your original point, iHeart is just Clear Channel, and they tend to have a general template that all their stations follow. So one station will have its breaks at or around the same time as another. This is all based on a lot of market research and has generally been tested and refined over time to the point of ensuring rating success. Other stations follow suit. The negative side effect is the homogenization of radio. They all sound alike because it works, but it only works in a everything is mediocre kind of way. If someone does break from the pack and create a successful innovation, other stations follow and the homogenization continues. For a further example, notice that local TV news shows tend to cover weather, sports, local news, etc., all at or around the same basic time. Source: programmed radio stations for years. Worked for Clear Channel. Played the same damned classic rock songs in a different order day after day, week after week.
Number 11.
The Fresno police killed John Lang. It's been a while since I've read the story, so forgive me if I get something wrong. John Lang was a journalist who was very critical of the FPD. He wrote an article about how the police went into poor parts of the city and pulled cars over that parked in free parking lots or something like that. Eventually, he started noticing people watching his house, FBI style. One night he asked on Facebook if he could stay in someone's home for the night, as he knew the police were going to kill him that night. After no one let him, his house caught on fire. The coroner said that he was stabbed to death, but then retracted that statement. That last part is what makes me believe it's 100% real. The coroner now says it was a suicide, not an accident.
Number 12.
Commenter: Marilyn Monroe was murdered by the US government. She frequently attempted suicide and then called someone via her landline next to her bed to come save her. When she died, no traces of it were found within her stomach and her colon had been extremely cleaned. A theory is that she was murdered via enema poisoning. I haven't brushed up on it or researched in a long time, so I am probably remembering facts incorrectly. Person B: I'm pretty sure she was overprescribed a medicine by 2 diff doctors on accident. They're the ones who found her. They were the ones who wouldn't let anyone into her room for hours. She took an extra dose that day, then the second doctor gave her a medicated enema to calm her down and she OD'd. And then they made it look like suicide to not lose their licenses or their lives. It was an accident but definitely covered up. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.